Good afternoon. Let me stay a little bit farther away. I'm Jana Staten. I'm one of the co-chairs on the leadership team for Partners for Reintegration, and I want to welcome you for PFR and also for Missoula Interfaith Collaborative, who's organized this great community discussion on the importance of mentoring and relationships for people that are returning from incarceration and want to become part of our community. I have some housekeeping while we're waiting for our stragglers to come in and get started. MCAT is taping this. It will be shown on the MCAT channel over broadcast and on internet in about a month. So if you don't wish to be any part of the taping, you can go to the far corners. Then you won't be visible. Otherwise, you've just given your consent to be on air, and please ask your friends to watch. We've had really good opportunities to have these shared on our website, and we'll do that again so that you can actually kind of follow it, and that's been a great gift for us, so thanks to MCAT. We have a lot of sign-ups and information on the table out there that you can take. We would like to know if you want to be on the MIC or PFR mailing list so that you can know about more of these. The big news is we're looking for more advocates, which Jen will be talking about, to become advocates for people returning from prison, and we want to know if you'd like to be considered for the training. Next week, we're doing a drop-in information session at Salvation Army Thursday at 3 o'clock, I think the 28th. And that's just open for anybody who wants to know more about how to succeed in the community, and it's led by one of our peer mentors, Keno Cartwright. We'll be doing those monthly from now on. And in terms of this meeting, the goal we've had for Partners for Reintegration this year was that we would really have more on-the-ground support for transitioning back into the community. And this is a start on trying to make that visible. And we have some good news. We want to give a shout out to Winds of Change, which wrote us into their grant to train new peer recovery support coaches, or peer support recovery coaches, one of those. And Greg Arciello and Robert Howe were applied and were accepted for training next week. And we hope that that will help lead to some new transition groups. There's one now that's been offered by Open Way Sangha called The Way Home every Friday night at 7:30 if you're interested. We've also have those brochures out there. And there's more information about both Missoula Interfaith Collaborative and Partners for Reintegration. As you know, Partners for Reintegration is a coalition of partners. Mick is one of our first anchor partners, and so we're just very grateful to Jen for organizing this panel. We'll ask each person to speak in turn, and then we'll have, I hope, 15 minutes for questions at the end. So please stick around until 1 o'clock. We'll try to end right at 1 so that we can hear what you have to say about the importance of mentoring for us, for the community, and for people coming out. Okay, Jen?
Thanks, Jenna. Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here. I don't know if I need the mic because I can yell pretty loudly, but so I'm Jen Barilli, and I'm the program director for the Advocate Network with Missoula Interfaith Collaborative. And Jenna talked a little bit about MIC. The Advocate Network basically trains and provides supervision for advocate mentors to work with folks experiencing homelessness, which a large portion of those individuals are people who've experienced incarceration. Due to criminal records, it's really hard to gain employment and housing, as many of you know. So I'll talk a little bit later on about how to get involved with the Advocate Network if you're interested in learning more about that. And I think that's, Jenna covered all the housekeeping, so really I'm going to introduce the panel quickly, briefly. We've got Lori Pope. She's a Winds of Change peer support person. John Donald, LCSW social worker in private practice and also with Western Montana Addiction Services. We've got Dale Nicholson, who's one of our advocate mentors with the Missoula Interfaith Collaborative's Advocate Network, Kathleen Bakary with Missoula Probation and Parole, and Pastor John Daniels with First United Methodist Church. So I think we have a wonderful panel from a diverse mix of backgrounds here, and they're going to all share with you a little bit today, and then we'll open it up for discussion.
While the rest of the folks are coming on in, guys, I just wanted to say that because we're starting this community coalition in Missoula and also in Billings and Bozeman and Helena, the Department of Corrections gets really, really excited about the fact that the community notices what we're doing out here. And I want to say that both Greg Budd and Jim Pagels from Missoula's Montana State Prison are here to join with us because they're the re-entry guys. And Adrian Slaughter is here from the Department of Corrections on Government Affairs, just to kind of check on what we're doing and see how we might be helpful to them. So thank you all for coming.
Thank you. And so it looks like, did you guys do this on purpose and in order?
We tried.
Yes, we're very smart.
Right?
We can use
Very
the
short,
other
too.
mics, too.
Oh, okay. In case you feel like you use this. So, Lori with Winds of Change is going to start us off. Thanks, Lori.
Hi, thank you guys for being here. Super nervous. And I've done this before too, but it's always pretty nerve-wracking when I come up here. So I've been in and out of institutions since forever, you know. I decided that I wanted to straighten my life out in 2005, but I was also coming into it with a lot of stigmas placed on me. I was a single mother living in poverty, double felon. I had a nasty drug addiction, and I was clueless on how to make it out on my own. Unfortunately, there were no mentors for me to look forward to. I had to do it pretty much on my own, and it's very hard to convince yourself that you can do it, that you know that you have a fighting chance, when you're sitting across the table from somebody who just doesn't get it. They've never experienced homelessness. They've never experienced the tragedy and the trauma of addiction. They didn't have the, you know, when you have a record, it's almost impossible to it's really hard to find a good job that you're proud of. You know, but I didn't give up. And I fortunately dedicated myself to a 12-step program, which taught me the benefits of mentoring. It became passionate. It became a goal for me to. What's really important for me is if I can offer any kind of help, so people, women, men, didn't have to go through the struggles that I went through to get where I am today. I want to share that. I want to share that experience. I want to share that hope. My life is, it's different. You know, I'm proud of myself today. I can sit across the desk from those people and feel proud of myself and know that, you know, I may be a statistic, but I'm definitely not a stereotype. I was asked to be on a planning committee, I guess it's called. And one of the things that they pushed were peer support. I pushed that. I continue to push that today. I've mentored a lot of men and women who have a fighting chance today. They have hope. They have a great support system. I didn't have that support system. It took me many years and a nasty relapse to come out and realize that I'm worth it. I am worth it. We all are worth it. We have struggles, we have barriers, but they can be broken. And they can be broken with people who have the experience of, you know, homelessness, incarceration, addiction, mental health. I've lost my train of thought now. Who's ever, I so encourage people who have had a past similar to mine and have found ways to overcome some of the barriers, some of the stigma, to get out there and show what you've learned and what you've gained. It's invaluable, and it's made my life livable today. Thank you.
So, if you're in this room right now, you're the first line.
Just getting kudos.
You're the first line of support for incarcerated peoples being released. When incarcerated peoples are released, they're shell-shocked and vulnerable, and may not have options in the community for support outside of the initial providers. The incarcerated peoples also come out with a core belief that the system that put them there cannot be of help or support for them when they're released. And you, as the first line of defense, are the ones that challenge that core belief, that barrier for clients to reach out and ask for help. I co-facilitate a reentry group that is a support group. It's not necessarily an addictions group. And when clients come into that group, the support they have could be their PO, could be their judge. It may or may not be family. Family may not be effective support. It may be supportive, but your family members still may be using, engaged in criminal behavior, and not safe. So the question is, how do you connect clients with a diverse support system? A system that will not only help with housing and employment, give them rides to get their birth certificates, help clean out a storage unit where they've got their furniture, but also for support. Who's going to facilitate an appointment with a mental health provider for a mental health assessment? I think, or I believe that the easiest place for clients to find support is usually in groups of people. Whether it be a faith-based community, AANA or other 12-step meetings, a therapeutic support group, an addiction support group, but usually a group of people that they can feel like they are part of a community. When you feel a part of a community, I think the options for reoffending become less. If you're attending 12-step meetings regularly, using is not as easy or as much of an option. If you've got a sponsor you're working with, if you've got a home group, if you have a minister you can call. So is that first line of support, that touchstone of support, ask yourself, what can I do to connect clients with community support, with one-on-one support, that person that they can call at 1 o'clock in the morning and say, I'm in trouble, or I'm about to be in trouble. And more importantly is that person will pick up the phone on the other end. And there's an intimate relationship there where the person that needs support can disclose everything and talk about everything and anything and be real. And I guess if we were to try to put a number or percentage on the people that succeed or don't succeed that come through reentry, I don't know that we could do that, because it's about planting a seed. It's about providing enough tools to where clients can find support, can find housing, can find employment. But the most important thing it does is it gives clients the opportunity to interact with other clients who want the same thing they do. To succeed, be successful, and not reoffend. So, thank you to you all, because you're the first people that are going to make a difference.
So to start off with, it's been both a privilege and an inspiration to work with these individuals. The privilege comes from them opening themselves up to a perfect stranger in a time of need and feeling weak. These individuals approach us with the hopes that we will give them unconditional positive regard. And the first line is for that advocate to create that relationship, that connection with that individual so that there's trust. The inspiration comes from the vast resilience that these individuals possess and have displayed coming to that point. The other inspiration comes from when the individual works with an advocate, it's not just the advocate that they're dealing with. They're dealing with a community of providers, whether it be probation and parole, whether it be mental health, whether it be Missoula Housing Authority. No matter what it is, there's a community behind that advocate. It's the community behind that advocate conveys one message, both to the individual and to the advocate. That message that it conveys is, we are here. You're not doing this alone. You don't have to do this alone. Now, according to the surveys that were conducted last year with pre-release, MSP, and probation and parole, the biggest things that these individuals want is community support. They've got it. All they have to do is ask. Now, when they're working with an advocate, we allow them to re-identify their strengths and their resources that they have immediately. Then the advocate, if needed, advocates for more resources that are within the community. There's that community is constantly growing day by day. So one of the requirements that an advocate has or must have is empathy, not sympathy, because they're not victims. We make them accountable for what has happened and what they can do, making them the author of their own story. Because of that community, that's where the inspiration comes from. Each of you here have some curiosity, which then leads to your empathy. You want to make change. You want to help make change. Who better to tell the story than the authors themselves? At the end of the day, at the end of the day, they are the success because they've overcome their barriers, their addictions, their homelessness, their inability to find a job. They are the victors in this. We are just here. That's on you.
I have been in corrections a total of 24 years. 16 of those I was a parole officer and 8 a PO2, which is a supervisor of the officers, but I'm also a hearings officer. And the reason I bring that up is I can tell you I have worked with thousands of felons over my career. And when I work with them, or when I did work with them, I always found it so difficult to be in their situation where they come out of an institution or away at a program and knowing what they're coming back to. They're coming back usually to the same environment they left from. That means they're in a community of more than likely underprivileged people, poorer people, many times their family and social environment includes a lot of people that are using drugs or dealing drugs. And these folks, when they come out of our institutions or our programs, my belief and my hope is that our programs have given them some tools to use back in the community. They get things like criminal thinking errors, or another term for that is T4C, which helps them change the way they think. If something is telling them it's okay to break the law or break a rule, then they can intercept that and change their behavior and not go that other route. We teach that in all of our programs, and they're in counseling, they're in CD treatment, and then they come back into the community that they left because they're comfortable, and that's where their family is, like it or not. You know, that's where they belong, or they feel they belong. So they come back in that environment with people using and people talking negatively about authority and probably breaking the law themselves maybe. And so imagine these individuals trying to not behave that way when a lot of people in their life are encouraging it still, or behaving that way still. And I just was always moved that must be so difficult, because probably most people in this room had people in their lives who, when they were starting to maybe make some wrong turns or some bad decisions, maybe stop that, you know, your parents, sibling, best friend. So it's wonderful to have these groups that they go to, and the reentry group I know is just a wonderful, wonderful step to getting that new community. But there always are, most of them are still going to have that core family or friends that might not be good for them. Okay, so if they have people, advocates, mentors that can listen to them and talk to them about those decisions and their struggles in keeping, staying away from drugs and keeping away from the drug dealers and the other people that they've known in this community, they've got someone who will listen and not, you know, turn them away because they're afraid, because a lot of people who are not behaving well are afraid of those that are, okay? It happens a lot with our population. So I'm just so encouraged by the fact that our community is stepping up and giving these folks more and more advocates and mentors, so that maybe when they're in that environment and they have other people to go to and talk to and help them along, that they can break out of it, or maybe even impact the community that they're in, which, you know, I'm an optimist, and I'd like to think that that could happen and is going to happen. And I will always believe that. That's why I've been able to stay in this business for as long as I have, because people can change. They can, and they do. And life changes for them, and they change their life. And I think that's all I have to say on this subject.
Well, I'm here to talk with you a little bit about something which has been going on for several months. It's called Healing Communities, but it has bearing upon what we've all been talking about a little bit, the essential nature of having community. Community support and advocacy and reinforcement of positive things in people's lives, especially those who have been challenged and burdened in different ways. Just this morning I was leading a class where we talked about forms of hell. And one of the greatest forms of hell we talked about was isolation. Stigma can breed isolation. When you have things that are in your past that have weighed against you and kept you from being a part of, and I love this term, normal society. What is that, by the way? Anybody know? I don't know what that is. We operate on the level of normalcy, but it's kind of delusional. At least in my understanding of our faith community work, our goal is not to deal with delusion, but to deal with reality. Faith communities, many of them in this town and many around the world, believe that life is a series, I guess we could say, of new possibilities, limited only by the structures of our thinking and our believing. A lot of our work with healing communities is to say everyone deserves a chance, and not just one chance, but a second, a third, a fourth. Do we stop at the fifth, I think? No? It can go on and on and on. What now? There's a scripture that says, 490 times, that's when we stop. No, the point is forever, because none of us is perfect, and we all know this. We somehow, when we grab hold of that reality and trust that we can make a difference with positive influence in each other's lives, miracles happen, and new life is possible. Healing communities is about bringing together faith communities to say that when we do talk about the understanding of the preciousness of every life, to take that seriously means to adapt ourselves to the reality of others. We talk in our Christian faith a lot about unconditional love. Sometimes we don't practice it too well. We choose those who are easy to love. I see that in my church, I see that in my own life too. But I have found amazing, even miraculous occurrences when I love beyond my norm, when I love beyond my comfort zone. And another term that we use is redemption. It's kind of a religious term, but I think it's just about new starts, new life, and new possibility. It's always possible so long as our minds and hearts are willing to trust in that and work for that. Healing Communities is about bringing our faith communities together to reduce the stigma, to embrace the positive influences that we can share, to take seriously unconditional love, to put it into practice. Not just for the incarcerated individual or the one who is entering society again, that is a focus of course, but also for those who are connected to those individuals, those who are hurt by crime, those who have experienced pain and struggle due to the realities they faced in their life. Something which has come out of this Healing Communities training and our initiatives right now is something our church is doing specifically, and we're just starting. We're calling it a Restorative Justice Healing Circle. And it's meant to be a safe place for those to come together who have been hurt or who have been victimized by crime. To basically provide a safe space where catharsis can happen, where conversation can be honest and trusted, and where there's not the oftentimes we apply the black and white answers to things. Those are few and far between. I think we have a gray theology, at least in my church. There's a lot of gray zones in there, but in the gray, if we trust that we can proceed together, clarity can be brought forth as we build our trusting relationships together and build it upon what I call unconditional love again. So Healing Communities is going on right now. We're still in its infancy. We have been trained in the fall. Reverend Doug Walker from our national, I'm going to get his title wrong, but he's a national representative for incarceration issues and dealing with it from faith community perspectives. We've got some traction going on right now, and I think we're just waiting to see how we can get more traction and have things actually develop the relationships between those who are on the inside, if you want to call that, church people, and those who are on the outside, we all should be together. And that's our goal. So.
Thanks, everyone, for sharing a little bit of your own personal stories and experiences. As many of you all know, people who have support, community support, whether that's from an advocate, from a mentor, their faith community, are less likely to recidivate and return to jail or prison. They're also more likely to find employment and keep that employment, which in turn creates healthier, safer communities. We're employing people, we're keeping them from feeling like they need to commit new crimes to support their families. We're keeping people out of jails and prisons so we can keep families together. So these supportive relationships, in whatever form they come in, are really important to not only the individuals coming out of facilities, but also to the health of the community as a whole. So I really appreciate everyone being here today to be part of the discussion. Before we kind of get started with some Q&A discussion, I also just want to mention that, I work with the Advocate Network, so I'll just specifically talk about that. But if anyone can be an advocate or a mentor, the advocates that work for the Advocate Network are a really neat mix of people from the community. They're people from faith communities, from different congregations, who may not have personal experience with addiction or homelessness or incarceration, and that's wonderful. We provide training, we provide support and supervision for our advocates on a weekly basis. We also, though, encourage our advocates to offer support if they have those direct experiences, though. And what's really neat is we do have advocates that have that direct experience that can work with someone or alongside them to say, hey, I've been there too, I know what it's like to come out and not be able to find housing, no one will give me a job. So really anyone can be an advocate. If you're interested in learning more about that, we have a sign-up sheet out at the table, right outside these front doors here, to learn more, and I can connect with you all if you'd like to talk with me after. Let's see. And I think that's all I had for now. Jenna, did you have anything before we open it up?
Let's see what they have to say.
Okay. So I don't know if anyone has questions, comments, thoughts. This is very informal. So any questions for specific panel members that you can put them on the spot? Maybe. Yes, Liz.
I have a kind of general question, comment. There's a lot of talk about success and failure, or preventing failure, preventing recidivism. I come out of a medical model, and we have finally learned we don't talk that way. Diabetics are not always well controlled. And you meet them where they are when they end up in the ER. You talk to them some more, and you get them into the office, and you work. It's not an either-or kind of model.
Mm-hmm. I think that's an important piece. Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. I think, everyone's experiences are going to be very unique. And when, at least with the Advocate Network, when we train advocates and talk with them about mentoring others, we do ask people to meet others where they're at. So, some folks are going to be ready to make certain changes in their lives, and some folks are not going to be as ready. And our job as supportive community members, as advocates and mentors, is not necessarily, to push someone to be quote unquote successful. What our idea of success looks like. Yeah, I mean, this is about walking alongside people, however that process is for them, and supporting them and being there, right? It can be really tempting to try to say, well, I know if you just do this, right? If you just get this done, it's gonna help you out. But right, that's not necessarily the job of a supportive person, We want that, like John mentioned, that unconditional support, because people are gonna make progress, and then, of course, we take a few steps backwards, right? and that's gonna happen. And if you know that you have a mentor or a support person that you can rely on, even if you are gonna make some mistakes, that's when you really build that trusting relationship, I think. Thank you. Yeah, in the back.
So Lori mentioned, and you mentioned, Jen, the power of people who have been there. And I guess this question is for the rest of the panelists, assuming none of them are returning citizens. How, Dale, you mentioned empathy. How do you establish that empathy with mentees that they know that you empathize?
So you're asking how do we relay our empathy even though our experiences are not the same?
Yeah.
Each one of you here have had trials and tribulations. Each person's path is unique. We've all overcome certain situations. From that, overcoming the situation, then you're able to relate. It's not about, well, you cross the street this way, but if you cross the street the other way, it would be better. So we're not here to solve the problem, and we're not here to sympathize with them. We're able to use our own experiences to relate to maybe how they feel, where they are, if that makes sense. I hope I answered that.
Yeah, thank you.
Did anyone else want to respond to that? Because I will.
Cross the street.
Because that comes up, and that's come up for me because I'm also an advocate with the Advocate Network. And I was a couple years ago as well when I was interning for the Missoula Interfaith Collaborative. I think it's really important to make that part of the discussion with the person you're working with up front. And I think transparency is really important, and to acknowledge that there's going to be some power differences. I like to start off by saying, I know that I don't know what it's like to be incarcerated, because I haven't been incarcerated. I don't know what that's like for you. And I like to have that conversation with folks so they know I'm not pretending that I'm an expert. I'm not pretending to know where you're coming from, but I am here to offer support. And I think that helps build trust. I do. I mean, when I meet with someone for the first time and I let them know, you're the expert on your own life, like Dale was saying. I can be here to support you, but I'm not going to know your direct experience. I think it's really helpful for folks to hear that up front. And that's at least one way that I try to acknowledge that I don't, that I'm not going to be able to relate, but I can empathize because, like Dale said, we all have had our own struggles and challenges, and I can share what's worked for me. So that's usually the approach that I have and that we share with our advocates, as well.
If I can add to that, those individuals that you work with, they're going to be able to see through whether or not you're genuine or not. If you don't understand where they're coming from, you got to be honest and say, I've never been there, but thank you for sharing this with me. A lot of these people individuals that we deal with, I can't tell you the change that comes about when you show them the utmost positive regard. It's like a light bulb that comes on, and you can see the transformation start to begin. And that in turn starts the empowerment, because then they can start looking within themselves to find those answers that are there. You as an advocate, you just ask the right questions. That's all it is. So.
Thank you. Did you want to add to that, or some? Okay. Mickey also. Did you want to add to that?
I'm a new advocate, and what my two cases, just listening, just sitting there and listening to them and letting them gush this out, and not being judgmental, like being, that must have been hard, what did you do? Ask questions, being interested. Just that alone just makes me something almost see the switch move. Just by listening.
Thank you. I don't know if everyone on the other side of the room could hear, but yeah, just listening is a really important piece, because I think we can feel pressure to fix things, and that's not necessarily our job, and it can be very powerful to just listen to someone share their story and their experiences with us. Thank you. Nikki, were you gonna?
Yeah, I just wanted to share a couple of experiences I had that were so compelling to me. One is I've heard the word empathy several times, and I've come to understand that's my own personal biggest struggle to overcome, to be a good friend, a mentor for someone who's in a situation I've never been there before. And I heard an interview a few months ago about something that just really struck me, just an example of this. I've never been a user, none of my family has, so I don't understand that. And I tend to lean towards well, those are people who just need to learn better. There's a better way, etc. Be judgmental. And in this interview, this was someone who was incarcerated and was a former user and was on the upswing. And he used the term that had never occurred to me before, that a lot of people fall into using or are in using because they're searching for joy in their lives. And that's what you feel when you're using. And so this light bulb went off in my mind. Oh, now I have a totally different view of people who use. And that's something that I can empathize with and therefore be positive about things that can bring joy to their lives. And that's my view now when I deal with anyone, whether it's friend or whatever, who's fallen victim to addiction, is help them find joy. And connected to that was my only experience with someone returning to society from incarceration was a young man who came out a little over a year ago. He's not a success story. He's not reincarcerated, but I don't know where he is now. It's the problem, but I followed my instinct to empathize, to put myself in his shoes, and invited he and his girlfriend to dinner at my house. And it was awkward, the social interaction and everything. But at the end of the evening, he said, "Mickey, thank you for trusting me."
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that personal story. I think that is a good example of how just getting to know someone who's been directly affected by incarceration or addiction or other issues that maybe we don't know enough about, just that direct experience for us can really reduce stigma, and really reduce the biases that we have. It's an educational experience to learn and say, no, I don't know what this is like, but tell me what that's been like for you. So thanks. Someone else in the, yes?
What's the process to get an advocate?
Folks call right now the Missoula Interfaith Collaborative office. So usually, that's actually kind of an interesting question, because sometimes we'll get calls from case managers or other professionals in the community, and which is wonderful, but I always say, have that person call, because I really want someone to want this for themselves. So an individual that's looking for an advocate or a mentor, usually with the Advocate Network, will call, and they'll speak to me usually, and I'll chat with them, let them know what we do, because our advocates work with people on a weekly basis, and they don't usually do for, they do with a lot, sometimes do for, but I kind of explain it, see if that's something they're interested in. And so sometimes we have a little bit of a wait list for our advocates, because we are looking for more advocates, but yeah, so they just need to call the Missoula Interfaith Collaborative office, and some of that contact info is on the table. Yeah. Oh, Jen, okay, yes, in the back, thanks to the camera. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
I'm reluctantly qualified to talk about this. I've been out for 2 years now, and the generality is there's no plan or path or trail when you get out. You have no idea. You're just thrown out there. You go from a very rigid prison routine, and all of a sudden it's all bets off. And I was overwhelmed just by seeing all the traffic. I watched that for a whole afternoon because it was overwhelming. I hadn't seen cars in almost 10 years. And I felt much more comfortable in the unfinished basement than upstairs in the house, because that's what I was used to for 8 years, was bare walls. But finding employment and the never-ending barriers that were with that were very tough. Family and friends were very supportive. They had no idea what I came from and what I was going through. I would mention it and they would listen, but it was just blank stares. I could have been talking in Chinese to them. They had no what that was about.
Yeah.
There's a group that I go to on a regular basis in which I don't have to explain anything. They already know. They already know what it's about. So it's nice to have a path when you get out to people that actually understand you immediately. So that way there's no blank stares. I have no idea. But that isn't happening. So hopefully through this, it will happen.
Thank you. The woman, oh, did you want to add to that?
I do want to make a statement. So when I was incarcerated, I was in there with a lot of women who, for their first time in their lives, were thinking clearly because they weren't loaded, right? But like I've heard people saying, and this is the truth, when we get out, we're just put out there in the same, we have to get a job, we have to get money, we have to secure housing, we have to be mothers if we're mothers, we have to prove ourselves out in the community, and there's a whole bunch of things. When the last time I was incarcerated, there was absolutely nobody there. I want to do a big shout out to Lori back there. The jail has now integrated peer support. So these people who are locked up, they don't have to come out without any kind of support. We have somebody in the jail who's been there, done that. So these people aren't being released to scary no known land, I think it's great. From the conversations I've had with Lori, she's giving them hope. People are being released with a little bit of hope, and that's huge. That little bit of hope can snowball into a lot of success, So I just want to say that, Missoula is doing such great things. When I needed the help, it was not there. I had to find this information out on my own. I was spiritually bankrupt. I was on probation. I was homeless. I had an addiction problem. I had it all. I was in the sequential mapping thing that we did. That's right, Aaron, isn't it? And I was the only community citizen there. There was a lot of agencies there. It took every one of those agencies helping me to become what I am today. But I had to search that out. Thankfully for me, I was blessed with one person in that agency that kind of got it, that didn't look down on me, that didn't tell me I'm a worthless loser and just give up. There was somebody that was there that understood and gave me the encouragement to go forward. I just wanted to throw that out there because I think that I've only been in Winds of Change for a little over a month, and I've had quite a bit of training. I go in there to people who've never had communication with a peer. They're in an agency, they're in a program run by people who are trained, they're educated, but they're not peer. They've never really been through it. So I get to come in and I get to talk to some of these people, and I've heard so many times already, wow, like you've been there. You're not just someone behind a desk. And I'll tell you, sitting on the other side of somebody with a desk and a computer in front of you, for me, going into that office, I'm already got my guards up. I'm already you don't understand. You're gonna tell me a bunch of crap that I don't wanna listen to because you don't get it. I go in there with that defense built up because of that computer and desk between us, you know. I think that the peers that we have going now, we don't have that desk and computer blocking us. You know, the only thing that we have is a commonality. So, you know, I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yes, the woman.
Yeah, I was just wondering, what does it look like on your end to coordinate to match them up? And then what does it look like on like the first day or something? Are they supervised or like
Sure.
some of that? And then also one other question on that is, what kind of training and supervision or support do they get for the mentors staff?
Okay. Let me see if I can remember those, but let me know. I think I got it. So your first question would be matching up advocates with folks. Yeah, when we train advocates and I talk with our advocates for our program, the Advocate Network, I ask people, you know, are you interested in working with specific people with specific experiences? You know, I have advocates that have been incarcerated and, let's say, struggled with addiction, and they want to really work with others that are coming out of jail or prison who have addiction issues. You know, I have some, yeah, so it just depends. I think some advocates are really interested in working with certain folks, and then I do ask advocates, I ask people who are interested in obtaining an advocate, I ask them, you know, some of our advocates have direct experience. Is that something you'd prefer? So I really just ask those questions, and then I'm usually the one matching up advocates with folks that are looking for advocates. But that's, so into, I think, your second or third question, our advocates actually work in teams. So you're not alone. So we have 2 advocates really working with either an individual or a family at a time with our program. So you always have support. You never have to go meet with someone alone. Of course, we have a safety training about, you know, sometimes people are obviously going to be intimidated meeting someone, you know, in their hotel room. So, you know, a lot of our advocates meet at coffee shops or in public and things like that. So we do training. So right now, the way our training is structured, we have about a 2-hour orientation that folks come to, learning more about being an advocate and what it entails. And then every month we have an hour-long monthly training or continuing education, if you will, on different topics. We also provide supervision with, we've got some social workers and therapists that provide weekly supervision until our advocates maybe are feeling that they don't need a weekly supervision, but they meet with social workers or therapists in the community to get support. And then twice a month we also offer group supervision. So we bring our advocates together to bounce ideas off each other and kind of talk about challenges and, you know, see if we can help each other out. So that's kind of the gist. Did I answer questions? Okay, sure, no problem. Yeah, Kathy. Hi.
So just in regards to the training that you do with your advocates, does part of that training include cultural sensitivity in regards to Native Americans?
Yes, that's a great question. Thank you. So we're still kind of developing our training and how it works, but right now, yes, actually, in May, the ongoing training that we have, the monthly training that our advocates come to, May, one of our advocates is leading a training on cultural competency for us. So that is an important piece, and I'm glad you bring that up because it is, that's like we were talking about power differences and having direct experience of things and you know, and not having experience. That's one of the things, when I was an advocate a couple years ago, I worked with an African American family, a woman with 5 children, and I had to say, look, you know, I don't know what it's like to be Black in Missoula, you know, looking for housing. I get that, you know, I don't know what it's like, and I need to let you know that up front. So I think talking about those differences is really important, and we will be, in May, we'll be having a training for our advocates on cultural competency to address kind of the specific issues. Yeah, thank you. Someone else had a hand up. Yes?
My name is Kristen Albee. I've been under the Department of Corrections for 13 years now. So I just got out of the Great Falls pre-release, wonderful program. It really did me right. But I have to tell you, some of the other programs, like I haven't been to the Missoula one, but I've been to the Butte one, and then you have your Billings one, and I was sexually assaulted in Butte pre-release, right? I get pushed back into rotation. Now, how do you fix, or how do you help a family when the barriers, you have burnt all your bridges, okay? I'm a recovering drug addict. I did not do it because I was happy. I did it because I was sad, I was beaten, I was tortured, okay? I literally would eat the scabs off of my arms because I didn't know when I was gonna eat my next meal. So, trust is a very big issue with me. Now, I'm profiling you as much as you're profiling me, okay? That's how I look at it. My wall is up, but I'm definitely open for any, what's the word I'm looking for? Any opportunity to be able to actually step out into, my family is very well known in this town. The Albies, the Karrases, the Beezies, the Bixby's, you know what I mean? I can't get a job. 62 applications that I put out there. I worked in one of the biggest manufacturers of ADF, welding fabrications in Great Falls. They hired me on. It's been wonderful over there. I haven't lived in the same town as my family. So I said, you know what? I'm gonna do that because I'm willing to change. If you're not willing to change, you're just gonna be going back to what you know, like what you guys are saying, drug use, And then like what you were talking about, cognitive thinking errors, concrete thinking. Police are corrupt. Your feelings about that, scared, judgmental. You know what I mean? And then your other way of thinking is, no, they're not corrupt. They're actually here to help us. And if you have your eyes open, they will help. But when I was sexually assaulted in the pre-release, these people are supposed to help me, okay? I get pushed back into a jail. I can't even talk to my kids. I can't talk to my family. No one helped me. I was in there for over 2 years, not talking to anybody. It's called PREA. Okay, they call for us for the Department of Corrections, PREA, and a case is made, and it goes to, I think, Helena, and then when your papers get released to the top, your case is open. But what do you do about the family? Our family, my kids, you know what I mean? So when we are, because they kicked me out of 300 and some inmates to speak on the behalf of the inmates, to speak to over 70-some Department of Correction facilitated workers, okay? And to let them know, hey, your program works, but to give us more information on how to deal with the culture shock, because they teach us how to keep a job, pay our bills, stay clean, NA, AA, support groups, but the culture shock, and then your family, just like you were saying, they have no idea. I was sitting at at a table, and like everyone was just staring at me, and I'm like, what are you looking at? They look at you different. I am the minority. I trust my PO. I trust people that actually have my best interests. So when you say advocacy,
Right.
are these people that are convicted felons?
Some of our advocates are.
Because I've had the DARE program, I've had the NAMI program, I went to the Opportunity Resources, they want to hire me on. But my felony won't.
Yeah, so hopefully I can help answer kind of some of the things you were touching upon, because I think your comments really bring up another important piece of this whole discussion, which is that no matter how much support you have, there's still barriers out there that exist, right? You have a felony record, people aren't going to hire you, they're not going to rent you. There are groups in Missoula, like Missoula Interfaith Collaborative, where I work, Partners for Integration, and other agencies that are getting together. We do some behind-the-scenes work. So we have advocates that work with people, but we also, and feel free to sign up if you'd like to learn more about that too, but we actually have teams that work on policies, changing policy or creating policies that There are a lot of policies out there that create barriers for folks getting housing or employment. So we are looking at some of those more systemic issues. I know Partners for Integration was it last year, Jana, got, at least for the city of Missoula jobs, got the felony box removed from job applications. The box that you check to say, yes, I have a felony, and then usually what happens is they throw that job application in the trash. That's a small step, but it's an important one. And so there are people like Partners for Innovation and Missoula Interfaith Collaborative and other agencies that are talking to legislators, going to the legislature, going to the interim committees next month actually, and really trying to bring the bigger issues into the light. Because I think, like you said, there's just a lot more. An advocate can only do so much, of course, with that individual relationship, but there's so much more going on with our systemic issues that need to be addressed. And PFR and the Advocate Network are doing that. Okay. Did you want to add to that, Jen? Oh, okay. Jenna's telling me it's 1 o'clock. Yeah, do you have a final?
Where is the reentry support group? Pardon?
The reentry support group?
There's a reentry support group, but that's through the Department of Corrections for people under, so we could ask John McDonald about it. There's a community support group, the one that's now open, is open Away Home on Friday nights at Open Way Sonja on Brook. And there's some information out there about that. And that's open to anyone in the community. It's just an open group, it's not an agent group. And then next week on Thursday, we have a once a month information session. It's not a group, but it's a chance to meet other people and talk to somebody who's been successful at reintegrating. That will be at Salvation Army, and there are some flyers. So if you're new to Missoula and are still wondering, kind of where are the resources, this is another way to get that information. Just an hour, and Salvation Army is really willing to hold it.
And if you know any offenders on supervision, all they need to do is ask their PO about getting referral to the reentry group. It's free to them. Lanny Holloway facilitates it along with John Donald, but all you need to do, have them talk to their PO. Okay?
If you would sign up for the PFR email list and just put that you're interested in participating in a support group, we're trying to work on forming a couple of support groups and women's and good things. So put you're interested so we can compile some names. Thank you.
We promised that we would end at 1. Some people are getting back to work or other things. We're welcome. We don't have to leave. The room's open until 1:30. So we'll stay for questions, but we'll give you a chance if you have to go.
Thank you for being here.
Nice to meet you, gentlemen.
Nice to meet you too.